The iPhone SE2 is an oddly divisive phone. I say oddly divisive because to me, this seems like the perfect entry into the Apple ecosystem. It's powerful, small, relatively inexpensive, and now it's actually my daily driver due to one important reason. But I can't tell you why yet. That's the whole secret, of the video. And you should totally buy one. So, why is that? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. That one secret is Touch ID. I just wanted to be funny. We'll talk more about it later in the video. Welcome back to You Should Buy, the video series that goes into why a certain piece of technology has blown my absolute socks off, and it has now received my highest of recommendations. Quick note on the You Should Buy series. 1, no, I don't actually expect you to buy literally everything in this series. And 2, I will only make a You Should Buy video if I've already bought it. So this is, again, my personal iPhone SE2. Back to that iPhone and why we're talking about it today. I think the conversation surrounding this phone should be much different now than it was when we did that 1 month later video a few months ago, because we now live in a much different world than we did in what feels like an eternity ago. First up, let's get to what I don't like about this phone. Nothing. There's not a single significant deal breaker that makes me dislike this phone. This is about as good as it gets for a phone that can do what this can do, especially at its price. Sure, fairness for fairness sake, if this was a $1,200 flagship phone and it was missing a few of these bells and whistles, yes, I would complain about it. But it's a $400 phone, so there's not that much to complain about. If I'm really pushing for something to whine about, there are 2 issues. 1, I'm still not in love with the battery life. But now that I've been working from home for what, like 5 or 6 months now, it seems crazy to even go back into the office anymore. So now that I'm working from home, I spend all day next to a power outlet. So it's not that big of a deal to me. I have yet to find myself in a situation, even in the rare occurrence when I leave my house, where I straight up run out of battery, or I don't get a full day of battery life out of this. And I do consider a full day of battery life to be my yardstick for success on electronic devices. Though, I mean, that's not to say they couldn't have done better here. If the battery life were amazing and it just lasted forever, it's not like I would complain that it lasts too long, right? Hopefully any additional firmware revisions, updates like iOS 14, those will be able to make the phone be more efficient and get a little more battery life that way. And 2, the only other thing I really have a problem with, and it's not necessarily the iPhone SE's fault, it exists across all iPhones and most cell phones in general, the speakers and voice quality when using these as speakerphones is kinda rough. If you're a working professional, believe me, we've all been in meeting after meeting through these things. Now that we don't have to waste any more time in meetings in person anymore, and voices through here are shrill and will absolutely give you a headache if you use them all day long. In fact, you've heard me say this in previous videos, but I've started taking all of my meeting calls, I'm pointing to my office right now, I take them on the iPad for this exact reason. You might think that within the realm of budget phones, it's okay to have iffy quality speakers, but I disagree. At this price point, with its longevity, thanks to that crazy powerful A13 chip that we'll talk more about in a little bit, this is the perfect enterprise phone. I would not be surprised if this becomes the standard corporate phone really quickly, if it's not already. I mean, again, I haven't been in the office. Maybe this is already the standard because it is the perfect corporate phone. Most of us will be using these for work calls in the not too distant future. So demanding the money spent on better speakers is valid in my opinion. And I think since telework will probably be the norm going forward, all phones need to start having better speakers. Seriously though, if you do have to use one of these as your work phone and you do take a lot of meetings every day, either get a pair of headphones or a Bluetooth speaker. I'm getting a headache just thinking about listening to this anymore. Bezels? Yeah, I don't care. And considering the amount of these phones that have sold, not too many others are that bothered by it either. So sorry, tech enthusiasts, and I do consider myself among your ranks. Bezels are only an us problem, and we aren't the only ones buying phones, and we aren't the only ones cell phones are made for. Look, hashtag self-awareness. So if there isn't that much to complain about, Gary, what are the positives? Just because it's not bad doesn't make it actually good. That's pretty deep. I'm gonna go write that down. First off, easily it's the price. That's really the biggest thing. Mic drop, I did that in one take and didn't break it or drop. Cell phone drop, video over. You can get one of these for $399. What? Honestly, as I was writing this script, I was trying to think of something clever or something witty to add to that price tag, but I can't. It's serious. And the phone is a serious contender because of that. Though, and this is an important point to understand, I don't consider the iPhone SE2 a direct competitor to other budget phones, because even if a phone wins on specs, and most of them do, that's not the point of the iPhone. But for comparisons, what is the major competition to the iPhone SE? The closest competitor is probably the brand new Google Pixel 4a, which actually looks like a very nice cell phone. It looks like a very nice piece of technology. And compared to the iPhone, the Pixel has better display, better battery, better base model storage, it's cheaper, takes better photos, has a USB-C charging port, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. It's basically the perfect budget phone. Okay, and? As good as it is spec-wise, it doesn't matter. If I wanted a Pixel, I would need to carry around 2 separate phones because I still need the iPhone in any case. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Gary, that's some mighty fine tap dancing you're doing. Must be that Apple ecosystem everybody talks about. And basically, yep, we're veering off track a little bit, but consider this. If you want the best, well, really the only smartwatch option around, you need the iPhone. If you want the best noise canceling, truly wireless headphones around, well, you don't need the iPhone, but the iPhone makes it so much better. And if you want perfect compatibility and functionality with the best productivity tool ever made, the iPad, you need the iPhone. Believe me, I totally get and understand that other phones exist. And heck, all of them have better specs than this iPhone right here. But it doesn't matter. The second this new SE came out, all other budget phones became irrelevant for me and my recommendations. And looking at those sales reports again, I'm not the only one that feels that way. In use, this continues to be just as capable and fast as my iPhone 11. This does have the flagship processor from Apple and the other top-of-the-line iPhone models with power that some computers don't have. And that's not hyperbole. If you don't believe me, check out my Can You Video Edit on the iPhone SE video from a few months ago. This thing handles 4K video editing and rendering like an actual computer. It's shocking. It's shocking the amount of power on display for a phone that costs less than $400. And because of that power, you get the major benefit of longevity. We already mentioned this, but it stands true that this phone will be updated by Apple for a very, very long time. And I don't want to overstate this point, but I very much applaud Apple for putting in their current, and I say current because who knows what's coming out in the next couple of months, A13 processor in this phone. They could easily have used the A12 or even the A11, and you know what? It would still be a great deal for $400. But putting their best in here and charging what they're charging is a statement. And I'm totally okay with that statement. Heck, when you look at that competition, we are all ecstatic when Android phones promise 3 years of updates. 3 years, that's like an eternity in tech world. Look, I have family members still using the iPhone 6s, and those phones will get the latest version of Apple's operating system, iOS 14. And if you didn't know, if you're not a big tech person, the iPhone 6s came out 5 years ago. But let's take a step back to the beginning of the video where I said this has been my daily driver. Reality is that Face ID was great before we all had to wear masks every day whenever we left the house. Face ID is legitimately a pre-2020 luxury, and maybe someday we'll get those luxuries back, but for now, Touch ID it's just vastly superior unlocking method. It is vastly superior for unlocking your phone, and that's really sad to say, but reality is what it is. I know there have been some tweaks to the speed of transitioning from not recognizing a face to pin entering mode on the Face ID models, but that's just a pain in the butt. That's just a pain in the butt. So even if you have the budget for a more expensive phone, unless you really, really need that wide angle lens, or you just are one of those strange people that just absolutely hate bezels, I would recommend this solely for Touch ID. And the next thing that I liked back in those previous videos that I continue to like now, the size. I just like smaller phones. I don't like having to reach my thumb all the way across a screen to tap or to type on something. Nor do I really like having a larger phone in my pocket. The SE2 for me is the perfect size for a cell phone. It easily fits in all my pockets. It doesn't take up too much room on my desk. Look at that. Look at how little room it takes up. And if you are a pretty active runner, I am kind of an active runner, and you use your phone as your music, podcast, metronome device if you are a total masochist, having a small phone makes it so much easier to actually enjoy that experience. Look at this. Look at how easy it is to hold this thing. I hate Another small tangent. I hate running with things in my hands, and it just drives me crazy when I have to like hold something that's too big. So the bigger the phone, the less likely I am to want to take it, and then the less likely I am to want to run. This thing, perfectly. Fits perfectly, it's light enough, you almost don't know that it's there when struggling up the hills that are apparently the only running surface around my neighborhood. Screen quality continues to be excellent. Yes, there are those bezels. They haven't exactly shrunk in the past few months, but bezels are bezels. The more you use the phone, the more bezels go away in your head. Heck, even when I'm using my iPhone 11, I totally forget that thing has a notch until somebody specifically points it out to me. That actually happened on a live stream. Somebody said, oh, the iPhone 11's notch, and I looked and I had forgotten that it has a notch. It's not as fast a refresh display, but again, for $400, I'm not exactly looking for Fortnite gaming domination. Not that I could actually do that anymore anyway. Awkward. And a point of honesty, with how small this phone is, gaming on it isn't exactly amazing anyway, but it does work well enough for Sonic the Hedgehog. And when you boil it straight down, that's the most important test. Can it play Sonic the Hedgehog? Yes? It's a gaming machine. And the last thing that is pretty darn impressive about the iPhone SE2 is the camera. True, it doesn't have the newest sensors or the newest wide-angle lens, which, okay, I'll give Apple that. They do need to cut costs somewhere to meet that $400 price tag, and they do need a reason for us to buy their higher-end models. Kinda sucks, but the camera here is still quite adept and capable. The stills look fantastic. Video can go up to 4K on the rear camera and 1080p on the front camera. It continues to have Apple's smart HDR built into it, making sure that you don't actually need to do much to make the images coming out of this phone to look fantastic. Here's another little secret. While I'm kind of a camera nerd and I have way too much money invested in cameras for all of this YouTube stuff, my primary camera in life is my phone. Yeah, camera snob Gary uses his iPhone SE2 to take the majority of videos and photos in his life. That's how it is. But at the end of the day, look, this is a fantastic phone. I can't think of one big name manufacturer making garbage right now, and that's the point. That's the point. It's not the phone that matters, it's everything around the phone that matters. And nothing has more supporting it for less money than the iPhone SE2. It's really the all-in-one package, and you should absolutely buy one. And if you like this video, saw it and you're like, Gary, I'm on board, and you are planning to get one of your own, heck, even if you aren't, you should check out my video covering the best accessories for the iPhone SE2, and you can find that by clicking right here on the iPhone SE2. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.